How long have you and I been doing this now?
A long time. I knew a couple. The last time we did this, I actually looked it up, but I've forgotten. I mean, it's a couple of years at least, if not three or four.
I feel
it's
like
a long time.
Yeah, I feel like no matter what happens, we have to continue doing these types of recordings into the future.
As long as we're here. I can imagine the whole world bombed out and you and I are talking in the middle of the rubble.
But talking utter nonsense.
That's right. Exactly. Spitballing, as they say.
I got a call this morning from a very, very good friend of mine, probably my best friend because we grew up together. But he emigrated to your side of the pond over a decade ago. I don't know where he is, in Calgary, I think. And
okay.
And he landed here in Cape Town this morning. He's here for a month. And
oh, wow, cool.
I was asking him if he's feeling jet lagged, and yes, he is because he arrived last night. But that flight, I mean, from anywhere in Canada to South Africa is very long. It's long. I think it's over 20 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
wow.
To fly from where I am, which is Cape Town, to New York is around 15 hours straight. And that's, for me, a very scary flight because it's just over the ocean. There's nothing. There's no land.
Right.
And I know that it makes no difference if you fall out of the sky, right? It makes absolutely no difference if there's water. But it's psychological.
You could fall into a tree, though. There is that girl, what was that, in 1971 or something, that fell 2 miles and fell in a tree. And she survived.
But it's interesting how the brain works. If you're on like a little boat, like a rubber dinghy. Okay, let's go to a bit bigger. Let's say a yacht, and you go out into the deep sea, and you know that underneath you it's almost infinite. It's that deep. It messes up your brain.
Oh, it does. Yeah. I mean, we have all kinds of weird perceptions like that. Just being in an airplane alone should make you crazy. Talk about that. Being on the freeway in a car.
No, but you're on the ground. But you feel like you have a sense of control.
Better.
I mean,
it's better. Yeah, it's better. But you go through a thing of, and I've written about that a lot, about this like healthy denial. This realization that in order to function in the world, we have to be in a state of denial most of the time of some sort, because it's perilous out there. It's like, it's very easy to take you down, something smashing you or whatever. And you really do have to like be in this, whatever,
But it's something that I don't understand with the human psyche. I mean, it doesn't matter what you tell me. I will never sleep at night with my arm hanging over the side of my bed. There is something under the bed. I'm listening. Right. I'm telling you, there's something there.
Well, there is,
and it's the same sort of. It's the same sort of fear when you're in that yacht in the middle of the deep sea, and someone says, "Hey, let's jump over and go for a swim." I think it's that it's the fear of the unknown. That's what I think it is, which is why I think if you're driving on a highway, you feel somewhat grounded because you can still hit the brakes and you can come to a stop.
Well, yeah. I mean, the denial thing gets more and more extreme as it becomes less and less in your control. So, that getting on the freeway in a car is not that difficult to acquire that kind of denial. But, but you're right. If you feel like you have some control over the environment, then the denial you have to conjure up is not quite as intense. And when you're in an airplane, I mean, think about it, being in the yacht in the ocean, you still have some control because you're stable. You're sitting on a boat that's sitting on the top of the water. So, your denial doesn't have to be that great, but like in an airplane, it really does.
You've got no control.
I deal with it. Yeah, you have zero control. And I have a lot of clients that, of course, if you're traumatized, like if you're in a plane crash and you live through it, or if you're in a car crash and you live through it, you do have less of a sense of denial because you know what can happen, and you're very aware of it. And it's unhealthy to have this denial, but it's also unhealthy to not have it in our modern culture. You know, you take somebody from the 1500s and pull them up into the modern age, and they would go crazy very, very quickly because if they had any perception of what they were dealing with, you know, like in an airplane, if they had any concept or any perception that they were up high in the air and had no control, they would probably lose their mind pretty quickly, or especially speeding in a car, because they could see that their senses would be able to tell they were in something moving really quickly and dangerously. So,
well, I mean, the interesting segue here is that that's precisely how the COVID event worked. It was the fear of the unknown. If the authorities say there's a deadly virus, you can't see it, and you know that people get sick, and suddenly you see somebody getting sick around you, you think, oh, it must be that deadly virus. And so therefore you become more easily manipulated.
Well, that's the whole thing, is manipulation. Because the agenda, lack of a better word, you know, took that bull by the horns and figured, well, we can really manipulate people with this fear, just like you're saying. I mean, exactly like that. If it were a natural, organic fear, it would be nowhere near as intense. Now, if there really was something to fear, like if there really was a virus that could kill everybody very easily, then we would learn that through our natural experience, just like they did during the bubonic plague at times. Of course, they had no idea what that was, but they knew it was there. So they would do whatever they thought they could do to control it or to avoid it. The COVID thing was, in my view, was completely manufactured. It was a fabricated event in order to gain control. That was the purpose behind it. And they just made it up. You know, they used the flu as the springboard for their fabrication, because people knew what that was. And they knew that if they had a respiratory issue that was flu-like, that then the agenda just spun that around to be, oh, this is a special disease, even though it seems like you're just getting a cold. This will kill you. This isn't like, well, the flu can kill you too, but you know, you're usually compromised that the flu is going to take you down. But this was something else. So they just ran with that. And of course, you hear all these things like, well, cases of the flu went down to almost zero during the COVID time. And so that's just another indication that they were just using that. If you counted the COVID cases, quote unquote, whatever they were, if you counted them, the real ones, like people that actually got sick with the flu, okay, whatever it was, then it would match what the previous years were. It would be kind of in alignment with that. At least that's what I've heard. I mean, I'm not an expert.
But saying agenda is, I think, quite correct. I mean, the whole climate change thing is also an agenda.
Oh, and geez, it's all
interesting.
Yeah,
interesting, Todd. The way in which people become controlled easiest is with that invisible enemy.
Well, you know, we don't actually see empirically with our senses about 99% of what is going on in the world. You know, it used to be that before any of this media or cameras or anything, we only knew what was going on that we could see within whatever. If we walked out of our cave or our hut, we could see what we saw, and if there was a fire or if there was a saber-toothed tiger running through the village or whatever, we saw it and we saw the danger. And then the things that we couldn't see, like maybe light, well, we could see lightning, but we didn't know where it came from. We didn't know what it was. We'd make up a myth about it. We'd make up some superstition about that. And then we would follow the rules of that superstition, whether it be sacrifices to the crocodile gods so they don't eat us when we walk across the river or whatever it might be. But no, I mean, you're nailing it with that. And it's so easy to manipulate that unseen thing, because it's all word of mouth. It doesn't become empirical evidence. We don't see people dropping dead in the street We don't see people dying of nuclear poisoning, or we don't get blasted apart by nuclear. I mean, you know, you read 1984 and you can see all this stuff predicted like 75, 80 years ago, whenever it was. So it's, you know, the war thing is such a good one too, that can be so easily faked. And, you know, an atomic bomb went off in Kiev. It's like, how many people are going to know that's true or not? Just the people who are there that are like going, well, I don't see any bomb. I mean, you could fake that. The whole alien thing that's going on now with that 3-eye atlas nonsense is another one that's an unseen danger. I mean, it's a far-fetched one, but it seems that since the government is jumping on board with the alien thing now, and suddenly are saying, oh yeah, there are aliens out there, then they can create something like this. If they're doing that, I'm not saying they are for sure, I don't know. But an alien attack to fake that is a big one. That's like a very global, just like a pandemic is. It's a global unseen danger.
Assuming you don't think Earth is flat, do you think aliens...
Well, sure it is.
It's concave.
Are you kidding? Are you going to say it's not?
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Right.
But do you think the alien thing could be real, though? I mean...
Yeah, okay, sure. So, all of this stuff could be real. That's just it. That's the reason why it's easy to believe. Unless you don't believe in infectious diseases at all, which a lot of people don't. Or they don't believe in viruses. I don't know what's the difference. Is bacterial infection that can get spread, is that also not considered? I mean, I don't know if it's infectious diseases that people don't believe, or just the idea of a virus. But whatever. I mean, if you do believe that far, there certainly could be a real thing. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised. One of the things I wouldn't be surprised about is if they actually release a real pathogen that can wipe out most people on Earth to get it down to that 500 million they're shooting for. And most people would not take vaccines because our side has made it so clear that it's a hoax and it's nonsense. If they release something that was real, you know, who knows? You might not have as many people complying.
No, but my question was, do you think aliens could be real?
Oh, aliens could definitely be real. In fact, I think aliens are real. I'm not quite sure if they're attacking us or not. I mean, that's the part that I would really question. They've been around a long time, and they haven't done that yet. And who is it? There's some theory, and I can't. There's a name for it, and I can't remember what it is. My brain's gone. But it's that the reason why aliens haven't contacted us or haven't attacked us or whatever is because we're so insignificant. It would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. It's like they may have visited at one time but then forgot about us, or it's that whole ant theory that, you know, we don't go out and destroy all the ants because it's like, who cares? It's insignificant. It's not important.
But I mean, I don't understand why some people just outright blanket statement claim aliens don't exist. I don't get that. I mean, how can you be so certain?
Well, you can't be, especially nowadays. I think back in the 40s and 50s when people were much more rigid about stuff like that. I mean, there was a religious element to it. It's like, you know, if they're aliens, then where's God? Why did God create us? And aren't we exclusive? You know, human life is created by God, can't be created elsewhere in other forms. You know, that was part of it. And I know when I was a kid and nobody believed in aliens at all, except for me and a few of my buddies, it was more about this weird concept that only life can live in an Earth-like environment. And there are no Earth-like environments anywhere else in the universe. The universe was much smaller then, I think, at the time scientifically. And also there's this idea that always screws it up, is that if there are aliens, they'll never visit us because they're too far away. We know they're not in our solar system. Yeah, right. Well, you know, the speed of light was the ultimate speed. And the closest possibility of alien life is 100 million light years away or whatever it was. I don't know. Don't quote me. And of course, they would never be able to visit us because they were too far away. But, that was before we had ideas of like quantum multi-universe and reality being made up of thought and all this kind of crazy stuff. And, I know, is it Rich? Who is the guy? Gear, I think is his last name, or Greer, who's really into this. I mean, he did a documentary called something of the, I think it's the Encounters of the Fourth Kind or something like that, where he talks about this idea of connecting with whatever this is, life form or whatever, through thought and through consciousness and creating reality and I'm kind of tending more toward that idea. I mean, the whole idea of aliens has always historically been very materialistic. It's like they fly around in spaceships and they go faster than the speed of light, which doesn't make any physical sense, but that's the reason why it's rejected, because it doesn't fit in the materialist paradigm. But aliens as creatures that have big eyes that, fly around in flying saucers and whatever, that's a very materialist concept. So if you can't fit it in a material paradigm, then it doesn't exist. If it can't exist within that material paradigm, but we're now starting to think that maybe it doesn't exist in a material form. I mean, it can go in and out because obviously we see them and they fly around in these things, but one of the things you hear all the time is that they can move from one place to the other without any time between their movements, stuff like that, which is a non-material concept. It's a quantum concept of space and movement and whatnot.
Well,
so
Todd, we are living in a material world, and I am a material girl. Oh boy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, or both.
Depending on how I'm feeling.
Yeah. You've never told me your pronouns, so I don't know. I mean, maybe you're not what you appear to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's a mystery.
Yeah.
You'll never know.
That's right. Yeah.
But I mean, it sounds so absurd, and I'm wondering if this fits into your categorization. What did you call it? The contagion of idiocy.
Just about everything does. I mean, it's, everything we're talking about does. I think the human psyche or human mind, whatever you want to call it, is very flexible, is very malleable, moldable into whatever force is being forced on it. And I think in the past, and maybe the distant past, this is one of the things I grapple with, is how long has this agenda been operating? I think it's recent that it's been as effective as it is now. I think that's a recent phenomenon. I think in the past, we had smaller groups of people that were under the influence of one central power, like a monarchy or the King Bubba of a certain primitive tribe or whatnot. And I think now we can be very, very easily manipulated if anybody takes the initiative to manipulate us. And I think that's one of the hardest things with the sheep idea out there, is that those groups of people simply refuse to accept the fact that they're being manipulated. And that what's odd about that is that humans have always been manipulated in some form, just like I just said, whether it be a monarchy or whether it be some larger government over a larger group of people. I mean, human beings have always been manipulated by those powers. They haven't been huge groups. They've been relatively small compared to an entire planet, but they have been. It's a natural tendency for humans in power to manipulate humans that are not in power. And the sheep people, whatever, the majority of people, certainly in North America and probably Europe as well, just simply won't accept that possibility even. I mean, they do with Trump, obviously, because Trump is hated so much. And that's also a mystery as to why he's capable of doing all the things and more than what we claim the globalist agenda is doing. Part of the reason why I think they hate him is because he's a nasty guy. He's blunt. He's ugly. He can be a dick. He can be all those things. So it's easy for people to project that, where you look at somebody like, say, Obama, who is like a sweetheart, and everybody thought he was such a good, decent person. And Biden, the same thing. I mean, the Democrats generally bring in people like that. And so it's easier to hate this guy, but it's all based on nonsense. I mean, it's based on his scowl that he had whenever you see him in public making this. He's always looking like that. And people just go, I hate him. I hate him. I hate his hair. I hate every word he says, whatnot. I mean, yeah, maybe he is a jerk. I mean, in every whatever. But it's just interesting how the masses can more move toward that because of somebody's personality. It becomes a personality issue, not a policy issue, not, whatever.
Yeah, but
anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent. Yeah.
But that's the contagion of idiocy concept that you're talking about, because it's that divide and conquer. The reason why Democrats and Republicans hate each other is because it's manufactured.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is. It seems, I can't really find anything that's going on in the world except for just kind of inconsequential things that aren't important, that are not under the thumb of the globalist agenda. And some of it could be organic. It could not be an intentional thought in anybody or any group's particular head. But it just comes about because it's almost like an emergent property of the sum of the parts become greater in meaning and purpose than the sum of the parts. It's like you get something rolling, like with the left idea of, say, DEI or diversity or whatever, and you get that rolling through whatever you do. As the agenda, policy or action that's taken. And then once it rolls, it takes on a life of its own, and it starts creating things that was never intended, but it's fine because it fits. It fits in the agenda. But it wasn't necessarily an agenda-focused idea. Does that make sense?
Yes, I don't know. But I do wonder sometimes if this idea of a global agenda is overstated. So
it is overstated. Sure it is.
David Icke, for example, puts everything into a single selling point. It's all part of one agenda, and ultimately we're part of a simulation. There's no aspect. There's no... what's the word I'm looking for? There's no possibility of emergence. Everything's by design.
I agree with that. That's like down at the bottom of the rabbit hole, the Ike idea. And, I certainly entertain it. My belief system is, it's not unique, but it's odd. It's like out there. And it fits that a little bit, I should say. It doesn't fit it entirely. But I think in a realistic point of view, like a probability, a probable setting there. Take, just to go back to Trump again, there are many people that think he's part of the deep state, part of the global agenda and whatever. And the reason why I'm still on the fence with that is because I don't think the agenda necessarily has its tentacles everywhere in everything. That, just like you're saying, it's like, Ike's position is that everything is determined. It's part of the process. There's nothing that can escape it. And I'm not at the point yet where I believe that this agenda is foolproof, that it's so rigidly compacted that there's not a single thing that happens that isn't part of its intention. And I think Trump is a long shot, because I think it is probably more likely that he is part of that, because he's a big deal. It'd be very easy to take him out, like it would anybody if they were not following the agenda. So, you kind of look, well, why is he even still there if he isn't part of that intention? So I do question it in that regard, but I also like to think there's a possibility. I mean, it kind of goes back again to Orwell in 1984. You know, he had the Brotherhood that was supposedly against the mainstream agenda in 1984, and it's pretty clear when you read the book. Well, it's not really clear, but you know, that was also fabricated. That was also created by the whatever the government is, the Goldstein thing, and you know, I don't know.
The sort of David Ickean way of viewing things, I think, is a bit lazy, because it just puts everything into one box. And there you go, a neat little package, and you can put a wrapping around it. And if you disagree, then you are being duped.
Right. I've heard that a lot. Believe me.
But it's also entirely possible, and in my view, plausible, that, let's say Trump, since you mentioned him, is certainly on the right side of history in many ways. I think he's on the right side of history when it comes to various culture wars, whether it's LGBTQ, transgenderism, climate change even. And it's entirely fine and acceptable that because he's a human being, you know, a complex system, he can also be on the wrong side of history with other things like Israel and COVID and warp speed. I mean, he still thinks that vaccines are fantastic. And the reason that I think people get caught up in this sort of binary thing the whole time is because they don't want to think of the gray. They want to think of black or white only.
It is. I mean, you're nailing a huge aspect of this, and this is also something that has come into. It's always been there. This idea of, you know, Jung called it participation mystique, which is this idea of just aligning with whatever the major voices out there in order to avoid. And of course, Jung also said there's a tension of the opposites, that where those two opposing ideas meet and conflict is really where life is. People have a tendency in their natural state to glom on to one polarization, just for the reasons you said. It's tiresome not to. And you know, that's one of the reasons why I think you and I, you know, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, that I enjoy talking to you, because you allow for all ideas. You don't necessarily agree with them, but you allow for them. And I think people used to be more like that. And that could be totally wrong, because people have always been rigid in a lot of areas. But it just seems that they're at least in my experience, in my lifetime, when I was younger, different ideas were allowed to be. I mean, most people, there were majorities that disagree with them, but they were allowed to be to some degree, certainly more than they are now. And this is where, you know, one of the contagion of idiocy is this idea that you have to be 100% on one side or the other in order to feel safe, in order to feel. There's a difference between those two sides, though, because this side, our side, if I have to call about sides, is willing to listen to the other side. At least that's what I've experienced. They're willing to listen to it. They make a decision about it. They may not agree with it, but they're willing to listen. They don't shut it down. They don't censor it. You know, and you hear that on the other side quite a bit. It's like, oh, well, he should never even speak. That person should be just completely shut up. They shouldn't be allowed to say anything because it's dangerous, and it's this, and it's misinformation and all that crap. So I went off on a tangent again. So sorry. I'm not sure if I was focused on exactly what you were saying.
No, well,
but
look, the idea here is that people always, no matter which side of the battle they're on, fall into the same traps. It's sort of this ideological / tribalism thing. Which ultimately removes individual agency.
Absolutely, and this is you're precisely pointing at I think is one of the biggest problems with what's happening in the world now. And certainly on a personal level, but even on a larger level. I know I have lost lifelong friends who have completely dissed me. I think I probably said this on your show, that I had two friends that I knew in college. One of them was my roommate and the other was just a very close friend, who literally said in the middle of the COVID thing, "I hope you get COVID and die." They literally said that to me. And I recently had my composition teacher that I've known for, forever, 50 years, however long it's been, who I tried to get together with him for lunch when I went back down to Virginia, which I do every time I go. And he's a hardcore liberal. And he wrote to me and he said, "No, I don't think it's a good idea that we get together because we have such serious differences." And I'm like going, it isn't like we're in Nazi Germany and I'm wearing a swastika or something. And even then, it's like you don't lose family and friends over political views or whatever it might be. But all this has been spun into this. Well, if you didn't get vaccinated, it means you're a selfish, hateful, ugly person. And I don't want to have anything to do with you or whatever. If you voted for Trump, back in the day, you could be a Republican or a Democrat. And it's like people would joke with you and they would say, "Oh yeah, you don't know what you're talking about," or, "That's really stupid. You support that idiot," and whatever. But people didn't lose those kinds of deep friendships over stuff like that. And I don't care if this guy is a super liberal. I'm interested in listening to what he has to say. It's like, yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm not afraid of any idea. I'm not afraid of talking to anybody. And
obviously,
I've had some of the best conversations with self-proclaimed communists. Whereas if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have not done that. And yet, if you aim to find common ground and break apart ideology and sort of dogma, you actually can get on with most people. But as you say, the contagion of idiocy is designed not to allow for that.
Right. See, there's a fundamental thing, like if you knew somebody who is literally a serial killer or a serial rapist or a pedophile,
I'll still talk to them.
You might still talk to them, but you might not be close buddy friends with them. You might not be. I'm not saying they're not capable of seeing the divine. I mean, their fundamental value as a human being is essentially divine. It's Christ conscious. And if you can see through the junk, because all that, pedophilia, murder, whatever, that's all junk that's added to you. It's not your basic self. And lots of people like to think it is, but it isn't. And you basically come out of the box. I've never seen a baby come out of a woman's body. It is a woman, by the way. A woman's body that
wait.
is a I'm glad you got to use that. Yeah. But anyway, the point I'm making, you don't see a baby that's just born be a serial killer. They might have brain damage that causes that later, but that's still an addition. That's a material physiological aberration that, yes, it has to be accounted for. I understand that, but the soul exists within a living body, and if the body is damaged, it may go in certain directions that the soul would not be aligned with and be tuned into. But still, everybody is forgivable, the whole Christ idea. And but anyway, what I was going to say a second ago when you were talking about that, I forgot, is that I think we're on in alignment with this, is that I think life in general is complex enough that there are anomalies, that there are always things that are outliers, that are off the grid. And therefore, this agenda idea cannot be so powerful or so all-encompassing that there isn't things within that system that is not in alignment with the agenda, with the thought of the system. And if you believe in God, you have to believe that. You have to believe that the devil is not all powerful, that the devil or evil or whatever you want to call it there will be a way, there will be something in there that doesn't align with the evil that can break through it. And so you have to have hope in that. And when you see it manifest here and there, like let's say something that Trump is doing, just as an example, that you think is positive and not in alignment with the agenda, you have to look at that and say, okay, well, there it is. It may not be him, it could be anything, but there is hope, to put it that way. You know, at a fundamental level, again, you could go down to this kind of divine idea that at the fundamental level, in my belief of human existence is good. You know, that anything that's bad, that we would consider bad on a not even a rigid polar bad, okay, polarization bad, because you really can't identify that. That's like trying to identify morality. And you know, if you're needing to survive and you have children, you're going to do things that are considered bad to keep your children alive. And you know, what's good for the snake is bad for the mouse. It's like, you know, we've got that thing going. We can't ignore that. But on a very fundamental level, human beings out of the box at their fundamental level are good. And they're altruistic, they're caring, they're empathic. And I think that's the level you're talking about, is that we get along at that level. When we start adding stuff to it, like where's the best place to go fishing? And there's an argument about that. And people get heated and whatever, and maybe there'll be a faction of people that go to one place and one go to the other. I mean, that's a really simplistic kind of at a very base level of differences. But then as they go higher and higher and higher, then you get into these inhuman ways of polarizing, which that's where I go to the manipulation. That everything we're seeing, I didn't used to think this until the COVID thing, that everything that we're really seeing that seems inhuman, like this idea of losing friends and family because you voted for Trump or whatever it might be, is a manipulation of the agenda. It's manipulating natural, organic psyche, archetypal presentation. It's manipulating that, and it's taking advantage of things like the tribal instinct, or, you know, the thing we were talking about earlier about not wanting to be in the gray because it's uncomfortable, or this idea of denial that we first started talking about with, you know, the fear element of creating something under the bed, and to say, don't hang your arm over the bed because what's under it will get you. And it's like, don't walk around without a mask, or don't go to your grandmother's dying days in the hospital because you'll get this thing that will kill you. And, you know, we're basically, from a non-spiritual perspective, we're terrified of losing our life. Our life is the end all. It's everything. And I think when you find God, and I don't mean that lightly, but when you really understand and are aware of what is real and what's truthful, you know, what's the line from Course in Miracles is nothing unreal exists. You know, nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. If you really think about those two first lines, it's like nothing real can be threatened. So your life can't be, your body can't be threatened. Your soul is the only thing that's real. Everything material around us we make up, and that can't be threatened. So if we're in that state of mind and believe that, sure, we want to stay alive. We want our body to function and not go through pain and certainly loss. We don't want to die. But when that's the only thing that matters to us, we're going to fall into this into this agenda power that agenda has over us, to be able to say, well, if you don't wear a mask, you're going to die. And it doesn't matter that wearing a mask takes away your human quality. It takes away your way of communicating with other beings. It takes away, I mean, endless humanitarian things that make you a human. Yeah, okay, we're convinced that if we don't wear one, we'll die, which also is not true. That's a manipulation, a fabrication. But let's say it was true. It's like, do we give up our humanness in order to physically survive? And I mean, I could tell you a million stories that focus on that theme, the idea of, murdering people, or, I mean, any number of things in order to physically survive. No, we don't. We have morals about things like that are internal within us, and we will not step out of our humanity in order to save our bodies and save our life. The people are starting to do that, and they're doing it because they're being manipulated to do it, because we're humans, and we don't believe, for the most part, most people don't believe in a higher power. They don't believe, they're not in alignment with source. They believe that anything can be threatened, that everything is real, that's physical, and everything then can be threatened. So it's a secular society, culture, human culture. And I think that's the core of the problem.
I don't know who said this, but I read it online. Someone said simulation theory is the unbeliever's God. And it's a great point, because basically, no matter where you fit into all of this, you still believe in something. Whether you're a Christian and you believe in God, or you are, I don't know, a polytheist and you believe in multiple gods, or you are David Icke and you believe in everything being a simulation, which implies that there is a creator of the simulation.
Atheists can't explain the crucial, the critical things. No. They can't. They'll just say things like, well, it just is,
Yeah, it just is. It's the Big Bang, and everything started from nothing or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just as equally absurd then as simulation theory or God or gods. The point is that we're effectively all the same. Because
when you're talking about material,
there's some sort of search for higher meaning. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking, when you focus on materiality as reality, the physical world as reality, then it's very easy to go into these kinds of ideas that there's no God, there's no higher power, or whatever you want to call it. But materiality isn't the end all. It isn't even really that important. I mean, that's why you can say it's all simulated and go, well, who cares if it's all simulated? Like what's simulating it? Like you said a minute ago. And I don't know enough about that theory to make comments on it. I think it's all simulated in the sense that it's all created through consciousness. It's all created through mind and the mind of God, whatever words you want to use. I mean, a lot of people don't believe that, so I'm not flipping it off and just saying, oh, but yeah, I mean, it makes the most sense. I mean, I've studied this stuff for a long time. I'm not an expert on anything, but I certainly have grappled with all of these ideas, the ideas of the different forms of God, what the different religions believe God is, going all the way back to the old days where they thought God was a human form that sat on a throne up in the sky. And also the atheist idea. It's like I've read so much about intelligent design and this idea that everything just comes from nothing. And I always find that argument to be so weak. They don't go into a deeper way. Now, they, of course, think the argument that some thing, it's not a thing, but whatever God is, some kind
created everything.
Yeah, created everything. They find that as ludicrous as it coming from nothing. But in a way, it's the same thing, because God isn't a thing. There's no material element to whatever this is, whatever you want to call it. And it just makes more sense when it gets put together. This is another point I want to make, and I'd be very curious to know what you think about this. It's like I have my Substack. I have lots of people there, and I talk to a lot of people. I have a lot of clients. I have not yet found somebody who is on our side of the fence with all of this that does not believe in God, that does not have some spiritual, religious, whatever. I mean, they don't necessarily have to, they can be Buddhists, whatever. People that don't believe the material is all there is and it's all arbitrary, that actually believe that there's something more to this. I haven't met somebody that doesn't believe that. That I'm sure there are. I mean, there's always outliers in every bell curve. And conversely, most of the people that I know that are hard left or whatever category we want to put them in, don't believe. And if they claim they do, they really don't. You can just, ask a couple of key questions and you can see that they're just saying they do, but they really don't trust in anything. They don't put any kind of weight or meaning in something metaphysical. It's all in the physical reality. And that makes sense, because I think that people like that are more likely to project authority onto other people, like a government or a health, a Fauci or whatever. They're more likely to say, well, he knows everything that we need to know, rather than say, this doesn't make sense from a more divine perspective. It doesn't make sense that we're all going to be wiped out by some pathogen or something. It just doesn't fit. Although that does fit, but not created by the government, not created by whatever. I mean, I'm going too deep into this, and I'd have to talk for a long time to try to explain it, and I still wouldn't explain it. But anyway, I think, do you resonate with that at all?
Yes. I was going to say, though, that I don't entirely have the same experience, but I have engaged with a number of folks on quote unquote our side who don't believe anything. They'll say, oh, but Christianity or God is a psyop. How can you see all these other things as psyops, but you've got a blind spot here? You're such a normie.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I can see that, but circling back to what we were talking about earlier, those same people ultimately do also believe in something. They'll say source, or God bless them if they say, there's nothing, because then we're back to that sort of atheist conundrum, which then which is, in my view, is just completely and utterly nihilistic and empty. Because I've always argued, believe in something, just, it gives, it's part of the natural human condition for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It separates us from animals. We're not sheep. Literally, we're not, elephants or giraffes. They don't have any sense of self-awareness. It's that sense of self-awareness that makes us wonder why we are here and where that purpose and meaning originates.
No, actually, I think that was pretty brilliant. I really like that, because it's a natural organic emergence from humans, because we're different, to go, what's going on here? What is this? And I think in the early days of humanhood, we came up with very simplistic ideas about what this could be, like the guy in the throne on the cloud. And then as time has gone on, we've either we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater and just said, well, it's not that. We know that for sure. We've been up there and we never found him, so to hell with that. It's not true. And I think that's where the atheist people kind of go. And then there's a more sophisticated way of looking at it. And sure, you could analyze the idea of, say, Christianity or any of the organized religions and say they were a psyop. I mean, who is running it? I'd be curious to know. I mean, those traditions have been around a long time, and they're based, I think, on fundamental truths. You may not believe that Jesus actually physically existed. You may not believe that, but certainly what's attributed to Jesus are very universal truths that you can identify them further back in like ancient Egyptian ideas and cosmology and whatever. But it's not like what Jesus preached was. I mean, it was unique because it was him and it was centralized into one ministry, basically. But it's still, it's like ultimately the same idea of what humans are and what they're capable of and what God is and blah, blah, blah. So organized religion, sure, there's a lot of problems with those ideas. They've had a shitty history. A lot of them have. Christianity certainly has had a strange history with corruption and blah, blah, blah. But the ultimate idea is that this isn't arbitrary. This isn't the end all, that there's something else going on that is significant and prominent and the most important element of this physical experience that we're experiencing. We don't know the answers to it, but and yes, I mean, I will go back and say, okay, let's say 90% of the people on, quote, our side of the fence are spiritual in some way. That doesn't necessarily, I mean, you can interpret that the other way around. You could say, well, that's the reason why we fall for this nonsense that the government is out to get us and all of this crap. And because we have that other thing we look at that's beyond human control. And that could be a fault that maybe we don't see the truth as the physical truth as readily as people that don't believe in a God or whatever.
I would say that believing in nothing is quite artificial because it goes against the human condition.
Yeah, I agree. I wrote an article. I don't know if it's published yet. I think it is. It's like bottom up as opposed to top down, and that's really. I don't think it is published yet, actually. But that's essentially what that article is about. It's this idea of solving problems like the drug problem or whatever. I mean, even things like climate issues or whatever, solving them from the top down. And yes, sometimes if it's purely a material issue, top down work can have impact and have effect. But really to change the world into a better place, to use those really broad terms, it has to be bottom up. It has to be about character and about raising children who understand the difference between right and wrong from a more metaphysical perspective than just what is better for them physically. I think that's where we're going. It's like, well, what's right and what's wrong is what makes me better, what makes me feel better, what makes me happier, what makes me feel high. And it doesn't matter what other people, that they don't matter. And it's not a moral issue per se. It's more of a what's best for this body, what's best for my longevity, what's best for, give me the shot, put a chip in my brain, whatever is better for me. Because then I could live forever, or why anybody wants to live forever, it always astounds me. I think the reason why people want to live forever is because they want to avoid death. It's not that they want to live forever. They just don't want to die. And that's not a good reason to want to live forever. There's a downside.
If you were to summarize the contagion of idiocy, how would you do it?
I think I'd summarize it in I guess one word would be manipulation. I think the contagion of idiocy, I think any contagion for humans is tribal. And I think it goes back to very tribal elements, which are very primitive. And they're not really bad. I mean, they can be. There's a lot of people on the earth, which there shouldn't be. I mean, it shouldn't be 500 million, but we're used to a tribal existence, which is a small number of people. There's so many people, it's very easy to get lost and very easy to lose contact and to feel isolated. But the problem with the idiocy part of it is that it's intentional. It's a manipulative tool by people in power that want to have control. And so they put the contagion into the culture, like the whole trans thing or whatever it might be. They put it in the fear of the COVID thing. They put it into the culture, and they take advantage of a natural tendency to side and to follow the whatever. And they manipulate that. So that's where the idiocy comes in. It's that people are not naturally idiots, I don't think. I think they're trained to be. And this is something Ike talks about all the time with this indoctrination, this educational indoctrination. Don't think, don't critically think, don't be curious. Think out of the box, which is essentially out of the tribe. And you can do that. The only time tribal stuff is dangerous is when another tribe tries to take that tribe's food or whatever. That's when the tribal idea becomes dangerous. Tribes don't go out there and want to kill each other just for the hell of it. There are reasons why they do, and that's manipulation, to give it a reason, to be hard left or hard right. And that becomes the idiot part of it, because we are idiots as far as being manipulated. We can very easily be manipulated.
Todd, how can my audience follow you?
Go to shrewviews.com, www.shrewviews, the little animal views, and join up. I have some free articles there every week or every couple of weeks. And I do 2 articles a week. So, and the community is really what you want there. I mean, there's some great people that we chat, we talk, we go back and forth, and we're going to soon be doing a Zoom thing every week. So it's fun.
Todd Hayen, thank you for joining me in the trenches.